Paul Brown has always been a man ahead of his time. He owned the shrewdest and most active brain that has ever dissected the simple game of pro football. Brown revolutionized almost every aspect of the sport and ran the Browns in a dictatorial manner. No other thoughts, no other opinions were ever considered. The results were a dynasty that captured 7 Eastern Conference crowns and 3 NFL championships. The pervasive influence of this somewhat cold and distant man extended well beyond the borders of a football field.
Paul not only believed in building football teams, he also believed in building character. He wanted you to be a stoic not on the field all the time, but a stoic off the field, in the community. He definitely believed in family. If you had problems with your wife, boy, she could call Paul and you'd get straightened out quick. How you dressed, how you talked, how you ate. He always said, don't slurp your soup. I mean, all those things who seemed funny at that time, but it did help us.
The engineer of Paul Brown's locomotive was Otto Graham, a quarterback who assembled all the parts and made the train run on time. While Otto was the star, his rarely used backup became a Cleveland cult figure with a loud and vocal following.
In the end of the '53 season, we went up to play the World Championship game against the Lions in Detroit. And in the middle of that game, this chant starts in the stands up in Detroit, which amazed us because we'd never heard this anyplace in Cleveland before. We want Ratterman, we want Ratterman. Finally, it got so loud that Brown had to recognize it anyway, had to do something about it. So he walks over to me and I started to take off my jacket. Paul says, George, people are calling for you up in the stands. I said, why don't you go sit up there for a while?
Brown valued results more than affection, respect more than popularity, and he maneuvered and motivated players like defensive tackle Bob Gain in a cunning manner.
The Bob Gain, player you're playing in front of this game, he's going to rip you good. Because he's better than you, Bob Gain. And Bob would get so mad until I said, that guy's in trouble. And Bob would just beat the guy to death. But that was his way of getting you up for the game. And, of course, with myself, he would always say little things like, maybe you're not good enough, Bobby Mitchell. You keep hurting our football. So then I go out there and take it 60, you know.
Brown was such a perfectionist that no matter how well his team played, he never seemed satisfied.
He'd come in, he'd walk up in front of the group, he'd say, quiet, we'll go over what we did wrong in the game. And he'd take out this piece of paper and it would drop all the way to the floor. Said, gee, we just beat these guys 38-0, you know.
I have a lot of respect for Paul because Paul was the best organized individual I've run into in my life. His organization was without cliques, and Paul was the clique. He was a man of his word. If he said you're going to practice an hour and 15 minutes, it would be an hour and 15 minutes. The only negative I had on Paul was that Paul would not accept the fact that new coaches were coming in with new ideas, and he could not adapt. And that is, I think, where we had our big falling out.
The shining years of the 1950s dimmed in the 60s. In 1963, he left Cleveland and vanished from pro football for 5 years. He returned in 1968 as coach and general manager of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Big shot! Almighty! Awesome!
If Paul Brown had mellowed in exile, it was not apparent. He was still a driving disciplinarian who demanded the most from his players.
We had this session called constructive criticism, and we had everybody in the room together, and Paul Brown would say, Bill Bergey, you blew 2 pass coverages, and if you're going to be the type of player we expect you to be, you're going to have to do a better job. We got beat by the Buffalo Bills one time, 16-13, in a snowstorm up in Buffalo. Right after the ball game, he had waived 4 or 5 players, and the very first thing he said in that meeting was, Bill Bergey, and I just kind of cringed, going, why did he have to start on me? And he said, you played one of the finest NFL games you've ever played, and about that time I wanted to sit up high in my seat so all of my peers could see me, and you just never knew what he saw in the films in his own eyes.
In 1975, the man in the brown hat left coaching as he entered it, a winner. Paul Brown was viewed as aloof, authoritarian, an enigma, but as often happens, the distance that separates coaches and players evaporates in time.
I was very happy to play for Paul Brown because Paul was very strict. He was the king. All you had to do was deal with him. If you dealt with him successfely, then you were all right. You didn't have to worry about the other guys.
Over the years, there are times I loved him, there are times I hated him. But when I went into coaching myself, I found myself doing exactly the same things he used to do, saying some of the same things he used to say. As I look back on it, playing for Paul Brown and the Cleveland Browns was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.